Blackson recently said, the next level of your life requires the next level or lesson. The next level or lesson requires you to let go of what no longer is aligned. I love that so much because in my experience, I have never, ever been able to create something new when I haven't looked at what's no longer serving me. And not only that, but as humans, we have this tendency to be biased toward what didn't work. And it is in our wiring to keep us safe. It's a survival mechanism. So and we tend to forget the things that did work. So we're going to talk tonight about evaluating your year and starting with a clean slate so that you can build whatever you want. You can create whatever it is that you dream of. Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching. My name is Karen Seltz. I am your host. You're watching Irresistible You, Ignite Your Passion and Purpose. And tonight is the winter solstice. It is December 21st, 2023. And traditionally, this is a time of year, if you believe in cycles, that you are to go within. You are to evaluate, what's working in your life and what's not working so that you get really clear and you can emerge come next season with fresh new ideas and a clear picture of where you're going, what you're leaving behind, and what you're choosing to take with you. So I would love to start with this. If you look at your 2023, what are some of the things, like 2 to 5 things that you're really, really proud of yourself for? So if you're watching this on the replay, I invite you to really pause and think about that. Like, what did you accomplish in your business, your personal life, your relationships, maybe your health? Maybe you overcame some challenges. What are the things that you are really, really proud of? And go ahead and pause if you're watching the replay and take this on because this is important work. Okay, so hopefully you paused. What I would love for you to do is go back over each one of those things. And without thinking, without going into story, think about what it must mean to you or about you, what it must mean about you. What characteristics did you show up in or as in order to have those wins? And I would love for you to begin the statements with I am. So maybe you started a business and you launched something new. So if you did that, whether somebody came or bought anything or not, you did that. So what does that mean about you? So for me, it might mean I am courageous, right? Because I did something new and I didn't know if it would fail or succeed. So that takes courage. Yes. Maybe you set a goal to work out and become healthier and you lowered your cholesterol by 20 points. What does that mean about you? It means I am committed. I am healthy. I am something, right? So go through each of those. And if there's more than one thing for each one, then write it down. You can have as many as you want. So go ahead and pause and do that now. All right, welcome back. Is this fun yet? Now, I want you to look at what were your failures or disappointments. Now, I believe that failure is feedback. It doesn't mean anything about you. Although, as humans, we tend to attribute meaning. We tend to make meaning or make stories up about what our failures mean. And I believe so strongly that our society has zero tolerance for failure. Yet, if you look at really successful people, they fail over and over and over. They just fail faster. So if you look at what things didn't turn out the way you expected, and if you can then write those down, and then you're going to say, okay, if I can take the meaning out of it that I made up about it, what then could be the lessons that I could extrapolate, that I could pull from those experiences? Because if you didn't succeed, there is a lesson there for you. And I know it's uncomfortable to look at this stuff because we want to just like brush it under the rug and say, oh, I didn't fail. I didn't fall down. You ever trip in public or drop something and you're like, I didn't do that. What? Or is that only me? Come on. I'm always doing something, right? So if you start to look at your whole life that way, and then you decide, okay, what are the situations where I didn't show up as my best self? So if you're anything like me, like you have this ideal, like, okay, this is who I want to be. And then there's like this, version of you that's maybe down here some of the time. Sometimes you're there, sometimes you're here. So what are the situations where you showed up down here instead of up here? It's hard to do that without looking at the screen. And then think about, can you be compassionate with that version of you that was doing the best he or she could? Can you be compassionate with that version? Can you hold them and love them just as they are? And know that, for me, for so many years, I used to talk as if I was this and that I'd behave like this and think like this and feel like this. And that gap was so incredibly painful because I wasn't willing to admit that I was that one. I wanted to be this and I wanted everyone else to see me as this, but they didn't. They just saw me as a liar. But I didn't know that. And I thought, fake it till you make it was the way to go. And turns out that doesn't really work most of the time. At least it didn't for me. I mean, you're welcome to do it. So what works for me is to acknowledge, like, I'm really disappointed that I yelled at my kids again. And to not make it mean anything about me, not make it like jump to the labels like I'm a bad parent or, like what kind of person yells at their kids. I promised I wouldn't do that. I promised I wouldn't be like my parents, things like that. When we go into those self beat up stories, it will never, ever help us rise up to there, ever. It will just keep us stuck down there. And there is a part of us, the ego part, that wants to keep us safe. And I've said this before, I'll say it again a million times. To the ego, safety is anything that you've survived before. It doesn't care if you're happy. It's not your spiritual side. It wants you to be safe. It wants you to survive, not to thrive. So a lot of times there's a lot of confusion between intuition and fear. So a lot of people will say things like, oh, I was following my intuition when I didn't do that thing. Well, were you really, or were you motivated by fear? Now, sometimes intuition can be like, oh, don't go that way. It's dangerous. But if it's going towards some goal that you want, that is part of your vision, and you're afraid and your stomach is in knots, I would say that's probably not your intuition. It's probably fear. So you get to evaluate it with your logical mind too, and just start asking, well, what's the worst that can happen? What am I really afraid of if I do the thing? And if it's people on the internet are going to reject me, then do the thing, because people on the internet are going to reject you no matter what you do. You might as well do what you're called to do, because the universe will only bring you the level of success that you are capable of handling. So if you can't handle one hater, there's no way in hell the universe is going to give you hundreds of haters. And if you want to be successful, or if you want a large impact, you get to rise to that level where you can handle 100 haters or 1,000 haters, depending on how much of an impact you want to have. Hopefully that is all making sense. So we are looking back at our behaviors, maybe our beliefs, because the behaviors are predicated by a belief. So it starts with a belief. The belief then leads to a behavior, which then leads to a result. So a lot of people that I talk to, they don't really know what they want. They don't know what their vision is, but boy, they can tell me what they don't want. So if that's you, you are not alone, and that's okay. It's a great place to start. It's easier. We're kind of wired that way, to be honest. So if you start with what you don't want, and then you think, okay, if I focus on that, if you know anything about cause and effect or law of attraction, things like that, if you focus on what you don't want, guess what you're going to get? More of the same, right? So if you can start there, that doesn't mean ignore it. Hear me. So law of attraction, when you focus on something repeatedly and it becomes your dominant thought or your dominant vibration, then you will draw the thing to you. But you're welcome, and please do not keep shoving it down, because what you resist persists. Yes. So you're going to acknowledge everything. You're going to acknowledge, okay, I don't really like this. And you're going to then say, what would I rather have instead? And if you don't know, you can say, well, what's the opposite of that? All right, so I don't want to be angry. What's the opposite of that to me? Now, that's different to everybody. I mean, it could be happy, it could be joyful, it could be content, it could be peaceful, it could be asleep. I don't know. It could be a lot of different things, right? So then think about the things that you could do that would make you feel happy, for example. What kind of thoughts would you get to think in order to feel happy? Because thoughts produce chemicals that have corresponding emotions. So when you start thinking better thoughts or higher frequency or higher vibration thoughts, you're going to start feeling higher vibration emotions. Now, I said that, and that is only the case when you're not ignoring or pushing things down. Because if you're doing that, you will always be there, because of what I just said. What you resist persists. And even though you don't think you're paying attention to it, your subconscious mind is all over it. And unless you deal with all the things, they're running you below your level of awareness, because 95% of everything we think, feel, believe, and do is coming from the subconscious mind. So all of us, by the time we're 30 or younger, are running a program. And in order to become anything different than that program, we get to interrupt. We interrupt this message. I remember those old commercials. We interrupt this message, or I don't know, this show to bring you a message. So that's what we get to do. How do you do that? Well, I call it priming your subconscious mind. First, you're going to tell it, okay, here's what I want you to notice. Whenever I go unconscious to this particular thought or behavior or emotion, let me know. Tap me on the shoulder like, hey, Karen, you're doing that thing again. You're believing that you're not worthy, or that you're right, whatever your programming is. You're going to tell your subconscious mind, okay, let me know when I'm thinking that. Or if you start feeling like everyone's against you, the world is unsafe, whatever your dominant thoughts are or beliefs, then the moment you catch it, you're going to say, oh my gosh, I caught it. Woohoo! You're going to celebrate that, because you were unconscious to it. Your entire life, probably, you were unconscious to the fact that you were doing it. Now, most people, when they get to this point, because you're going to start noticing it a lot, and the tendency, I'm not saying you'll be, the tendency is to say, oh my gosh, do I think anything else? Like, this is constantly going through my mind. And remember, you were unconscious to it before. The only way you can change any thought or behavior is to become conscious that you're doing it. If you're not conscious, you have no choice at all. You're running on a program. So when you catch it, instead of beating yourself up because it's there so much, you get to celebrate it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I caught it. Woohoo. Then you get to say, okay, what would I rather believe? And there's your blank slate. So you're going to also tell your subconscious mind, okay, look for evidence when I am being courageous, or when I'm being powerful, when I am standing my ground, like standing for myself rather than people pleasing, when I'm saying no, when things are a no to me. So really, for me, that's honesty, that's authenticity, is being able to say no if something's a no for me, and not worrying. Even if I worry a little, I'm so practiced at it that I don't worry too much anymore about the repercussions of that. Like, oh, they're not going to like me, or they're not going to invite me. And my energy on it is very, very clean. And if people want an explanation, I'm happy to explain it, but I don't offer an explanation. I know I'm all over the place here. This is kind of fun. Well, for me at least. So let me give you an example. When I was a people pleaser a few years back, I don't know, maybe many at this point, if people would invite me to go places and I didn't want to go, I would actually get mad inside my head. I'd be like, why are they inviting me? Like they should know that I am too busy right now and I don't like doing that. Why do they not know that? Well, they don't. And instead of being grateful that they thought of me, I'd be like angry because I didn't know how to say no. And I would say yes, but what was my energy like? I mean, I was angry and I was resentful. I'm like, I don't want to go, like a teenager, right? Like they're forcing me. So I realized this and I'm like, well, what if I just say no, thank you? Like people are like, oh, okay. Most people are like, okay. So here's what I say. I'm like, wow, thanks for thinking of me. That means a lot. And I'm going to pass on that one. Maybe next time, or I'll invite you to something later or whatever. Like you don't have to give an excuse. Never ever say you're busy if you're not busy. Do not lie to your friends. Don't do it. It doesn't feel good. Just tell the truth. You can say that's not in alignment for me right now. Or I'd rather, what's the thing with the cheese grater? I'm just kidding. I'd rather grate my face with a cheese grater. No, don't say that. I'm teasing, having a little fun. But it's really important to know yourself, to know like what's important to you. What's a yes? What's a no? And you can take that with you, your ability to trust yourself. Because when you say no, your subconscious mind is hearing, I must be important because I'm finally being prioritized. If you say yes to everything, your subconscious mind decides that you don't matter. What you want is unimportant. What everybody else wants matters, but what you want doesn't rank. It doesn't matter. So think about that. When you say yes to everybody else, who are you saying no to? Yeah, the most important person in your life, or at least that's what we're working on, right? So hopefully that helps. So when you are looking at your year in review, you can also look at that. When did I say yes to things that were not a yes for me? And what did that lead to? How did I feel? How did my body feel? Because the body will tell you immediately when you start to pay attention to it. So when someone asks you something, notice your body. Like, what does your body do? Mine, if it's a yes, I'm like, oh, hell yeah, right? Like I fall forward and I'm like, it's a yes. If it's a maybe, I've said this before, like a maybe is a people pleaser's no, right? A maybe is a no. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. No, thank you. We'll be polite. And if it's a real no, like a no way in hell, like if I say, hey, do you want to jump off this 80-foot building with just a little tether, a little rope? And like most people would be like, hell no, like their bodies will physically go backward or the body will tense up, it'll contract. So especially the stomach for a lot of people, or the neck muscles, the low back, the back of the knees. These are all places that will tense when you're in a stress response. So just notice like the back of your neck or your shoulders, your stomach, your low back, your knees. So start to pay attention and just breathe into it. There is no hurry to respond to somebody. There's no hurry. So you can say this. This is the bridge statement. It's, thanks for asking me. Let me think about that. I'll get back to you. That's it. Thanks for thinking of me. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. Okay, right? Instead of let me look at my calendar. Because if I said, hey, I have this great opportunity this Friday night. If you come, I'm going to give you $1 million. I don't think you'd care what's on your calendar. I think you would cancel it. And you would come get the $1 million and do the thing, right? So it's never something to make an excuse about, like, oh, let me check my calendar. Because if it were important to you, it wouldn't matter what was on your calendar, most likely, right? I'm not saying like your best friend's wedding or something. Well, you might miss it for $1 million. I don't know. All right, I'm having lots of fun here. So you're going to look at your year. Okay, what decisions did you make that felt good to you, that felt aligned? What decisions did you make where you're like, I wish I wouldn't have done that? And what are you interested in creating next year? So I would love for you to take like all the icky stuff, all the stuff you're like, oh, this is a disappointment and I wish this had gone better and I didn't handle this well, and write it all down on one separate page, and then write all the good stuff on something you can keep, like a notebook page, something you want to keep. And if it feels aligned to you, burn the stuff that you consider to be a disappointment or negative and say goodbye to it and thank it for the lessons in a safe way, of course. Like, don't set anything on fire, like your house, but say goodbye to it. Sometimes rituals really, really help to really anchor in the process. Like, okay, I'm really letting this go. I'm letting it go. It's gone. And then you can start with a clean slate. And then you get to decide, okay, if I had 10 times the confidence, what would I want to create? If I could create anything, what would I create in the next 12 months? Who would I get to be in order to create that? What characteristics would I get to show up as? And I bet you it's the same ones. If you remember it back in the beginning, when I said, what were some of your wins from 2023? What characteristics? Like, I am courageous, I am resilient, I am powerful. Those are the things that you could choose to bring with you into 2024 and breathe them into your body and say them in a powerful way, because they're already true about you. They're already true. You have the list, and that was based on facts. Like, if anybody accomplished the things you accomplished, what would anybody say about them? Right? Like, somebody who called, 10 strangers and told them about their product, I would say they're courageous. Somebody who called 1,000 strangers and told them about their product, I would say they're resilient, they're committed, they're courageous, they're powerful. I mean, there's a lot of things, right? So you can amplify that. So you can take your wins and you could say, I already am that. How can I bring that with me into 2024 and create a life that lights me up? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So I hope this was really helpful for you. I know I went all over the place. You might have to pause a few times, but I hope that you did the exercises as well. So if this was helpful, please let me know. You can email me, Karen@KarenSeltz.com, my name. And I hope that you have a wonderful Christmas if you celebrate it. Happy Hanukkah. I know it's over. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Boxing Day. It's in Canada, right? It's the 26th. And happy all the things. Thank you so much for watching Irresistible You, Ignite Your Passion and Purpose. I'm Karen Seltz, and good night and good luck. Mwah.